Investors pulling back a little bit this morning, but of course markets near record highs. We're joined by Laura Lau, Chief Investment Officer at Brompton Group. Laura, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
When we talk about copper, we've seen Freeport McMoran running into serious problems, workers killed at their huge mine in Indonesia. And we saw a massive run-up in copper shares yesterday, well, almost 10%, some names. Maybe you could have a look at Lundin this morning, LUN or HBM, Hudbay. So fascinating that the copper investors seem to be on tenterhooks, worried about a possible shortage.
So every year, every analyst actually builds in supply disruptions for copper because it's very, very common to have supply disruptions. We've had some from Codelco. They've actually had some fatalities. Teccominco had problems at their ports. So this is another one, but it's a big one because this is the second biggest copper mine in the world. And it looks like the majority of it will be offline till first half next year. And they're still trying to assess the damage. So there was a big mudslide. So it was, an act of God, hence force majeure. And they're trying to figure out what all the damage is. It looks like some of the equipment was damaged. Some of the mine has a lot of mud and earth in it, and again, there were some fatalities. So it looks like it could be a while till they sort it through and get back to production. As I said, 2% of mine supply will be affected. So that's partly why a lot of these companies have rallied. And I actually did see Lundin yesterday. So certainly it's, good for copper prices. And supply and demand was already quite, it was quite short as it was. So it looks like copper prices have to go up to offset that.
Apparently 800,000 tons of mud flooded underground tunnels. So the scale, almost 1 million tons of mud. And Bloomberg says that Freeport has always had a fractious relationship with Indonesia. Indonesia owns most of the mine. And there's speculation they might push now to own more of it.
So every time there's negotiations, Indonesia has pushed for more and more. So even before this happened, as you said, they were going to push for more. And they also did want to extend the life of the mine. And this is a very, very challenging mine to operate. It's very big, very technically challenging. There were documentaries on how hard it was to build the mine. That's how hard it is. So I do say that Indonesia does need the technical expertise of an international company. So they will be negotiating. And I would say that it's advantageous for Freeport to have those discussions as soon as possible and for Indonesia to push them off. So there will be that tension.
What about copper? Are you a bullish long-term or even in the near term on copper?
I'd say usually what happens with these disruptions is the copper price goes up and then it adjusts and then over time it starts heading down. So that's why I would say temporarily I would not chase this.
Right. Broadly, how are you playing tech these days, Laura?
Technology?
Yeah, technology stocks,
yes.
sorry.
So technology, I would say right now, we've had a lot of great news. There's no doubt about that over AI spending, the government, trying to help tech companies. So, and I see that we'll still have some announcements, but the scale probably won't be as big. And we've seen, technology definitely rally. Like certainly at the beginning of the year, everything else rallied, and technology, is doing really well. So we do expect it to take a little bit of a break because it has been, so good, so much good news coming. So long term, we still see it's great for technology, but I'd expect a pause simply because a lot of the good news has been in the stocks.
The massive AI spending on equipment, but we've yet to learn whether this will really be that profitable for companies to justify it.
That's true. However, I think they do believe it's an existential crisis. If you're not there, then you may not exist in 5 to 10 years. So that's why they're spending so much, because I do think that they do have to be in the AI game. If you're not, somebody else will. And we've definitely seen that with Google. Google search. Are we going to be using as much Google search? We're probably using more AI search.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I often just don't click through to the website. just don't bother. I mean, search was such a pain in the neck, I found. You just got so much garbage.
Well, the problem is sometimes you search for something, it wasn't even on the first page.
No.
You get to the second, third page. Whereas with AI, you can get your response very quickly on the first page without all the ads. So certainly a lot of Google and a lot of these other companies are going to have to figure out how to monetize that.
You have some stock ideas for us. Let's start off with TD, because it's had quite the rebound from the miasma of the anti-money laundering penalties in the States.
So it's definitely benefited from that bounce back. And Monday is going to be a big day. It'll be their capital markets day. So the last capital markets day was 2023. So typically you do not have a capital markets day unless you have good news.
Right,
Otherwise, why bother? So certainly they will revise some of those targets. And I'd say some of those targets were expected to come down anyways. Instead of, like, say, 7 to 10% EPS growth, it's probably going to be lower because of the AML issues in the U.S., as you alluded to. And the return on equity target was supposed to be 16 plus, or probably 15 plus. But I think people will breathe a sigh of relief, and they'll have a plan on how to get there. And the big news is certainly a new COO from HSBC. So we expect that there will be a push on operational efficiency, bringing down costs rather than in branch, probably to be more digital first. And I think that will be welcomed by investors. And also, what are you going to do with all this money? They have all this excess capital. We expect them to have, after the latest share buybacks, to have $9 billion in excess capital. What are you going to do with it? You're probably going to invest some in the business and more share buybacks and maybe some, nice dividends.
And then Chartwell, the senior housing name, what attracts you there?
So what we like about it is demographics. So what we see is, their target audience would be, the 75-year plus, and that's growing at about 4% per year.
75 up, that's their sweet spot.
That's their sweet spot.
Okay.
And then when you think about the supply the last 3 years has grown at less than 1%.
So expensive to build things, apparently.
Yes, and it's just going to go up. So what we see is demand's going up, supply is still constrained, and their occupancy is going up. So they target 95% by the end of the year, and we've slowly seen that ticking up, and they're about 93%. So we think they can get there, and they make a lot of money off ancillary services, and we expect that to continue. So ancillary services like, maybe you need more medical care, maybe you need help, meals delivered, or, more physical therapy. So they do very well in that.
I wouldn't mind moving into one of those places, but I'd find all the old people annoying, the other old people. Anyway.
They look happy. When I went to visit, they looked very happy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. As long as you can retreat to your own space occasionally and just be left alone.
Exactly.
BAE Systems, big name in aerospace and defense, catching your eye?
Yeah, so we've had this for a while, and one of the reasons is we expected geopolitical risk to go up. We've certainly seen that with the Ukraine war. Every day another war seems to break out. And we've seen certainly Trump tell Europe, you have to spend your fair share. And Germany has stepped up and said, their deficit, they'll go into deficit in order to pay for defense. And we're seeing today Turkey is going to go talk to him, and they're going to up their spending, and especially probably on the F-35s. And BAE has part of that program for the F-35 fighters. So every dollar they spend, they get about, 13 to 15% would go to BAE. So they do a bit of everything, whether it be airplanes, electronic warfare, tanks and such. And we see that Europe has to restock, especially after Ukraine. One thing that's not well known is after the Ukraine war is done, they actually have to restock.
Yeah, the missiles and all that.
Yes,
the ammo.
yes.
Yeah. Laura, thanks very much. Laura Lau, Chief Investment Officer at Brompton